is that you and me and no one else, not the young
He
man.
didn't break any laws. People on January 6th broke laws. What law did Al Green break?
I understand. Rules.
Decorum.
Rules.
I mean,
No,
Shannon
no,
Watts. No, let's just go back to decorum 1 second, because you gave a very long answer at the beginning. You just bypassed the decorum.
Yeah.
You did bring up decorum and civility in your original remarks.
I did.
Shannon Watts, who's a gun control activist, you may know her, founder of Moms Demand Action, she had this viral post. She said, democracy dies in decorum. Kind of riff on the post, democracy dies in darkness. She's right, isn't she? Democracy's on the line, and people like you are talking about decorum.
Mehdi Hasan sits down with a weak, pathetic loser of a politician, Congressman Jim Himes. We usually cover people that disagree fundamentally, but in this case, these two are supposed to be generally on the same side, but Congressman Himes can't stop himself from just being a weak person, an even weaker leader. He's determined to prove to you how weak of a leader he is. Even starts flailing and comparing murder with speaking up during a speech. Just shows he has nothing else to say. So let's watch these clips, and I'll give my thoughts on it afterward.
I think there's a lot of ways to fight righteous battles. Think of the civil rights movement. Malcolm X was part of that. Stokely Carmichael, fairly radical, right? Martin Luther King, criticized by radicals for being way too accommodating and moderate. You know who else was important? John F. Kennedy and Lyndon Baines Johnson. I think it's a mistake to get into the question of, do you want to be John F. Kennedy or do you want to be Malcolm X? All of those elements are really important, but I'm going to acknowledge that focusing on decorum is the wrong thing to do. I probably should have said the rules. And I'm going to acknowledge that rules and laws are different, but they are alike in the way that if we are to live in a society of laws and rules, we have to take off the table that I can break a rule or a law simply because I have strong conviction. This is why a young man murders the CEO of United Healthcare. He had strong conviction. This is why, to bring up another potentially sore topic, too many people seek to justify the extremely aggressive, brutal war on Gaza because of the horridness of the murder of 1,200 Israelis.
Those are killings and crimes we can disagree. Al Green saying the president has no mandate is not in the same moral or political universe.
You see, you're lawyering me here because it's not what he said that matters. He took a decision consciously to break a rule. And of course I'm not going to sit here and say that that's the same as a law against murder.
You say you voted against Joe Wilson, to censure Joe Wilson.
Yeah.
That was, 15 years ago. In the last 3 years, we had Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert repeatedly, abusively interrupt the president. Did you vote to censure them?
So the censure votes have not been about behavior. They've been about speech. They went after Adam Schiff. They went after Rashida Tlaib. They went after, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
For like, Marjorie Taylor Greene stood up and screamed at Biden in a way that Al Green did not do. That's not why she was called to censured. That's what I'm asking. Did you censure her for what she did at a State of the Union?
Aren't we outraged? Well, so remember,
a lot of people are upset about the double standard. An elderly black man is removed from the House and censured. 2 white Republican women abused Biden in a way that Al Green did not do to Trump, and they did not get censured.
And I watched there through this speech as Marjorie Taylor Greene wore her hat. That's a violation of the rules. And the speaker didn't do anything about that. Now, we both feel outrage. Outraged that Marjorie Taylor Greene was not held to account by the speaker who held Al Green to account. Why do we feel outrage? Because they refuse to police our own. And it therefore follows logically, correct me if I'm wrong, that we should celebrate the fact that we are willing to police our own.
No, I think the argument from a lot of people who are upset with you is that Democrats cannot continue fighting in this way. It's as if you're playing football, and when I say football, I'm being British, soccer, and you're playing 2 teams and the other team keeps picking up the ball and running with it, and you insist we will carry on dribbling. You will lose in every occasion. At some point, you have to adapt to your circumstances.
Yes.
People like this, they are professional losers. They do not care about actually winning or winning over anybody or getting things done to benefit people. They only care about keeping their own jobs, their cushy jobs, their government health care. And then when they're done with that, they're worrying about which lobbyists they could work with or for, because they go from receiving money to now being the lobbyist handing out the money. That's the career goals of any of these weak politicians. That or hoping to stay in the middle long enough to then be pushed to become president. These are their options. None of them actually want to try and fight for the people that voted them in. You can't win over people that way. because even people that disagree with you will support that you're fighting for what you say you're fighting for. But if you're not willing to fight for your own people, then why should anybody fight for you?
I believe that when it comes to rules and law, contexts matter a little bit, but not a lot. Again, how do I answer somebody who says you voted to condemn Joe Wilson, but not Al Green? Law, you believe that the rules don't apply to your side. That would certainly be the common person's understanding of this.
I think
and there's not a terribly good answer to that.
I think you have a good answer, actually. I think you yourself have given the answer in the past. Let me I went through your Twitter for the last year.
God bless
Here's what you've been saying about Donald Trump. You said he's betrayed our democracy. He's taking us into a constitutional crisis. He is, quote, breaking our democracy. He is dismembering our democracy. These are all your words about what Trump is doing. I don't think anyone thinks Barack Obama was doing that. George Bush, I have many criticisms. I think he's committed war crimes in Iraq, but I don't think he was trying to dismember American democracy. Trump is sui generis. I think that is your argument that you can make to the imaginary person who says, why did you do that but not this? You yourself have admitted that he is betraying our democracy, dismembering our democracy. If he's dismembering our democracy, then why on earth are you worried about the rules of what you do in the middle of his speech? A speech, by the way, in which he's insulting you to your face. He's calling you radical left lunatics. He's making racist jibes about Elizabeth Warren. You want to talk about politics? You guys look weak. The guy's bullying you and you're just sitting there quietly. Al Green looks strong.
So let's stay on the question that you asked, because I agree with that. I don't think anybody thought that the collective response at that speech was a good one. That's a different issue. But there are two answers to your question. Number one, we will cherish the rules more than they do because we are better than they are, and that matters. Every social movement in history that has actually achieved its ends has held themselves to a higher standard. Anti-apartheid, civil rights, you name it. We hold ourselves to a higher standard. That is our core strength.
They broke the rules.
Of course they broke the rules. Of course they broke the rules. We had this conversation, and you accept the circumstances.
The rules are whatever you say they are, because they change all the time. Is it against the rules to take money from corporations? No. So that's cool. That's not against decorum. Is it against the rules to continue, fund, and start endless wars around the world? Is that against the rules? Is that against decorum? No. But being controlled opposition and constantly fighting your own side, pretending to be a referee of some kind, is what you choose to be. You're not a referee, bro. You're on a team. Here we're political because we cover politics, but I'm nonpartisan. But if you are choosing a team, you have to fight for your team. No one's going to respect you if you're not willing to fight for your own people. And anytime you do actually stand up and do something, it's always against somebody from your party. It makes you look so weak because you're only willing to fight your own people because you think there's some fake middle ground. Your own tweets prove that there is no middle ground for you. But yet when it's time to actually do something off of Twitter, all your actions are against your fellow Democrats. Who do you think that wins over? What mythological person will see someone fight their own people of something so stupid like saying something during a speech that means nothing and say, oh, that guy right there, that guy that voted to censor his own people, that's who I'm going to support outside of the president that I support? It's such a lie on its face. It's almost disrespectful.
Let me ask you this. You asked me a series of questions. You read my tweets. I am not at all confused about how dire the threat of Donald Trump is.
I appreciate that, which is why I don't get the disconnect.
Mehdi, our healthcare system in this country is probably responsible for tens of thousands of deaths. Deaths. You could even characterize our health insurance system as murderous because of that.
Yes.
People are denied care. Why should I object to the young man who decided that he would break the law against murder to kill a healthcare executive? Answer that question
Very
for
simple.
me.
A, it's against the law.
Yes.
B, murder is always morally wrong. I don't think standing up to heckle a president who is trying to dismantle democracy, calls himself a king, engages in white supremacist rhetoric, is targeting the media, is targeting political opponents, and mocking you all in the process. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's not it's nowhere near the same thing as murdering a healthcare executive.
Well, but they're on a spectrum here. You're making the argument that some rules are stronger and more compelling
I'm saying
than others.
Do not murder is not the same thing as do not stand up and object to a man that you and I both think is a threat to democracy. We agree on that, right? We agree that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy.
But do you agree that all rules that are not obviously unjust, and the rule of house decorum or whatever it is not obviously unjust, that all rules that are agreed upon by both sides or whatever...
I'm not even objecting to the censure. Like you said, the rule was broken, censure. What I'm objecting to, and what a lot of activists are doing, is that you didn't need to vote for it. The 10 of you did that for some positioning or to send a message that we are, we believe in decorum, and that's what's bothered a lot of people.
Not that we believe in decorum, but that we believe in the rules and that we seek to establish a dramatic difference between the Republicans who will move in lockstep, not hold their own people, but that we think and that we take the claims of rules seriously.
I think Al Green established the dramatic difference in showing that he's got some kind of energy in him. And you've even lost Bill Kristol on this. Lifelong neoconservative, supporter of centrist Democrats. He came out in favor of Al Green. He wrote, "Am I alone in feeling that it was good to see some fervent conviction and righteous indignation? Am I the only person who was actually kind of happy to see, in a sea of Democrats waving little paddles with lame messages, someone literally standing up to Trump?" He's right, isn't he?
He's right. But you're now making a different argument. I think I started this conversation by saying, I think I even support what Al Green did. The question is, was a censure right? And was it right for me to participate? That's the question. So Bill Kristol didn't go on to say, and by the way, Al Green did not go on to say, please don't censure me. In fact, he welcomed it.
From Republicans, not from his own colleagues.
Because he understands that
I feel like you're trying to have your cake and eat it, Congressman. So then why didn't you stand? Let's take your argument to its logical conclusion.
Yeah.
Why didn't you stand up, object to Trump in the same way, and then vote to censure yourself?
Well,
I mean, that's where your argument's taking you.
That's a sophomoric argument. I mean, I have thought a lot about how I could have done more. And by the way, here's what's, I think, driving the activist community. It's not detailed arguments about the nature of civil disobedience. There's an immense amount of fear out there that I share. And by the way, I don't just share it. I own it more than most because I was one of the last people out of the chamber when Donald Trump sent a murderous crowd to end the Congress and to kill us. So I will give up nothing to nobody on the issue of understanding the fear. And I will fight that tooth and nail, as I always have. I did this for 4 years of Trump.
First of all, free Luigi till it's backwards. Not because you may agree with what he did, but because he probably wasn't the person that did it. But also, this man, a sitting congressman, just called our healthcare system murderous. That means he knows the problems, but it's not for healthcare for everybody. He calls the system murderous, but doesn't want to make sure everyone has healthcare, period. That just sums up who this person is and what he represents. And him trying to weasel around this interview is just pathetic. It's not difficult to see why people, even if they don't love Trump, will vote against Democrats. Because people like this are the bulk of them. Why would you support these people? They want to play referee while being on one of the teams. You're always going to lose. You're fighting with hands tied behind your back that you're tying for no reason. You're not actually fighting to change anything. You're fighting to keep everything the same. But according to you, this system, this current system, is murderous. The healthcare system is murderous, according to you. So you don't want to change anything. And also, anytime you stand up for anything, is against your own party. People like this are paid to lose. They are controlled opposition. There will be no changes in your life materially as long as people like this remain in power. So if you don't like what's going on with Trump or ICE or whatever, yeah, you can blame them because clearly the Republicans are the one in power, but it doesn't work without people like this. Weak, quote unquote, opposition. As they say, it's a big club and you ain't in it. And if you're still watching, you might as well like the video and subscribe to the channel. Peace.